if you're a member of a group that doesn't have a GSR, you hear all these groups at their group conscience. I get to attend a lot, and they say, well, we're carrying the message really well when the newcomer comes in. And for me, that's not carrying the message. That's sitting on your arse waiting to deliver the message when somebody walks through the doors to pick it up. Carrying the message is going and talking to the doctors. It's going and talking to the prison authorities. It's getting out there and physically pick up the message out of your home group and take it somewhere else. Don't sit waiting for the poor bedraggled alcoholic to walk through the door. They might die before they make it.
I heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hey, Don. Hey, everybody. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
Sam, your voice sounds like clarified butter.
Like ghee?
Like ghee? Ghee. It's kind of deep.
Well, we're still getting over that laryngitis thing, so I've just got this fabulous, rich tone to my voice right now.
Carry on.
So, Don, I was on the social media apps, as I am wont to do, and I saw something not too long ago that just really got me thinking about something. So I want to read it to you.
All right.
It says, got a message recently from someone who wrote, I'm only at 6 days. And I understand the feeling that only in there is necessary, but I promise that nobody who made it to a year or a month or a week did it without doing those first 6 days. And it got me thinking, and I crafted my own little comment on there, but then it took me a minute to really get my thoughts together, and I ended up with this. The onlys are a way for my disease to sneak up on me. The onlys are a reservation, a way to minimize my sobriety. When the importance of my sobriety is minimized, thoughts of drinking or using can start to find justification and rationalization. After all, I only have X amount of time. I might as well drink. It's no big deal.
Yeah, the onlys. It's not surprising if an alcoholic takes a drink. Every day an alcoholic doesn't take a drink is a miracle. And that's why it's one day at a time. So I was at a meeting this morning and a guy talked about, I only have 3 years. It was a room full of old timers, but 3 years is not only. A week isn't only.
No, it comes back around to that humility definition, being right-sized, not being too big, but also not playing small.
Yeah.
If I own my sobriety, however long it is, then I'm right-sized. And 6 days is a really big deal.
It's a miracle.
All of these times that we're able to go without drinking, that thing that was ruining our lives, it's a big deal. I understand the onlys, but I don't think it's really the right thing.
Well, it's not good if it's comparing to other people and feeling less than because of it. And like in the big book, anytime, in fact, it used to always jump on me where it says in the big book about the real alcoholic does such and such. And every time I would hear that, I would go, the real alcoholic. I wonder if I'm a real, and what it was, that's my alcoholism jumping on there, rattling its cage. Like, oh, maybe you're not a real alcoholic.
Well, I guarantee you are a real alcoholic.
Hey, who you calling an alcoholic? You're right. I am. And you are too.
Oh.
Sam. Our guest today is from Australia. Now, I know you traveled all over the world in a previous job that you had, and I think you mentioned one time that you went to a meeting in Australia once.
More than once, but yeah, I went several times while I was in Melbourne. Also in Hobart, Tasmania. Man, I loved going to meetings all over the world, but it was really cool going to meetings in Australia.
I know, and it's incredible that meetings are in Australia. Meetings are all over the world, wherever we go. And those meetings exist because someone carried the message of recovery there long ago. And those who got sober cared enough to organize enough to keep it going.
And our guest today is continuing to make AA happen. We'll meet Geoff S., Southern Regional Trustee, GSB Australia.
GSB is General Service Board, and trustee means an enthusiast.
I think we'll find out.
But first, the news.
Did you ever serve in the military sober? Were you ever stationed overseas or on a ship while trying to stay sober? What were AA meetings like in the military? What were some of the challenges? Did you find AA while serving? Tell us about being in AA while serving your country. Submit soon. Stories are due February 15th. And now a word from our sponsors.
We don't have sponsors. What are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, we don't do the commercial sponsor thing.
Since the Grapevine is self-supporting, we don't sell ad space in our magazine, on our website, or in our podcast.
Grapevine doesn't even accept donations from AA members.
If you want to support Grapevine and this podcast, visit aagrapevine.org/store.
Hi everyone. My name is Geoff. I'm an alcoholic. I'm living in Melbourne, Australia. My home group is the Deal Men's Group. My sobriety date is the 2nd of April 2007. And I'm currently, my service commitment is Southern Regional Trustee on the General Service Board. I'm about midway through my 4-year term doing that.
Wow.
So is that enthusiast?
I think you have to be an enthusiast to do well at any role in Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of work, but it's ultimately rewarding. Service has been a big part of my recovery right from about my 3rd week in AA. Yeah, always just the natural thing is to, well, what's the next service commitment?
Do you know when AA came to Australia?
Approximately 80 years ago. We'll be having our 80th anniversary. We're looking at making plans for events and international gatherings and commemorative issues of things and all sorts already. We aim to make this a big one. I think it shows to people that, AA has been around a long time. It's strong, it works, and it shows any newcomers who are, maybe just getting sober that year, you're part of something really big and something really good here.
Well, Geoff, I happen to know that not only are you an enthusiast, you're a service nerd, because that's how Don tells me he met you.
That's very true. During the COVID pandemic, I started getting online and going around the world, and I was thinking, I wonder if there's any service-specific meetings, and I found Service Nerds in Greensboro, North Carolina.
That's right.
Where we sit and we discuss the service manual. We go through the concepts and we talk about all things related to service in AA and recovery. And we have some amazingly great digressions. They're a good bunch of people. We're a small but dedicated band of service nerds, always looking for more people.
You can find out the link to that meeting at nc23.org. Geoff, so how did you hear about AA?
I heard a lot about AA, funnily enough, before I decided to quit, mainly on the end of sentences like, have you tried? Or you should go, or ever thought about? I got sober through several visits to a rehab and, talking with the psychologists there and the inmates as well. Being a psychologist myself, it was such great fun being in therapy. It was a really interesting experience, but there was people who had gone out and were coming back in as outpatients were talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And for some reason, I always thought, well, I just don't believe in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's like, I had no evidence or reason to think that, it was a contempt prior to investigation, as it says somewhere.
Yeah.
But I saw these people getting sober. But I still didn't think that it was anything I was going to do. And when I was in there on the Wednesday night, when the AA folk came in to run a meeting for the inmates, I was tired. So I just went to my room I don't know what it was, but then eventually I found myself in there yet again. 2 years of fighting alcoholism. There's only one thing going to win, and it wasn't me. And I went to the inpatient group one night. The only folks that were there were me and the counsellor. And he basically 12-stepped me. He said that he had been in the fellowship for 6 months and it had got him sober.
Oh, wow.
He, a psychologist, he went to various meetings and he gave me a list of meetings to start attending. I, shrugged my shoulders and thought, well, I'll go, but it won't be any good. 2 days later, I had a home group, a sponsor, and, I was getting running in the program. It really went from there. So I guess that was my my moment of clarity. Also coupled with the medical doctor saying that your liver function results and so forth are such that you might not survive another serious bout of drinking. And I think that scared me a bit. I stayed up all night to come up with a reason as to why I was different, but by 8 a.m. in the morning I had nothing.
So it was being beaten into a state of reasonableness that gave you the willingness to listen? Or did you just hear something that you identified with and went, these people know what they're talking about?
Yeah, all of the above there, really. I mean, I went along to the first meeting and it sounded sort of interesting. And I met a Russian guy and he suggested that I maybe went to his home group. It was a strong group. Then I met him again the next day at another meeting. He was doing all sorts of things like going to work every day. He was running marathons. Not that I ever want to run marathons, but he was doing good stuff. And I thought, well, maybe he's got something. It just kind of went from there because I started listening to all these guys who were doing all that amazing to me stuff. And the amazing stuff they were doing was just what civilians do. They were going to work every day, not just when they wanted to, hanging out with their families and enjoying it, being sober and happy. I could line up sober and miserable. I couldn't line up sober and happy. They had a secret, they had a key, I got a smell of it and I thought, I want a bit of this. And they told me all I have to do is listen and do what they've done. And man, they were right.
So you were a therapist before?
I was always in psychology research. I never went in for patients and what have you. That could have been a recipe for a lot of disasters for a lot of people. It pricked my interest as a psychologist. And I started looking at, as I was going through the 12 steps, what are the psychological principles behind this? And it's not rocket surgery. I could line those up. I can see why this is work. That kind of strengthened the whole thing for me. I could see personally it was working. I could see examples of others, and I could see intellectually why it should work. And I thought, these guys have got something here. This is real. This is really smart. I'm in. And that would have been around the point of my third and fourth step.
Was there anything in there that was a surprise to you?
Not really. I mean, that maybe the passing it on and doing it for others thing. I thought you tack that on the end and make sure that the fellowship keeps going. But there's so much more. It keeps me honest because I can't ask a sponsee to do something I'm not willing to do myself. I can't make up ideas and opinions to pass on to sponsees. I can only share the way that it's been shared with me.
Yeah.
But to give you an example of the intellectual thing, I saw around the fourth and fifth step that yes, I was making an inventory of my grosser handicaps and all that sort of stuff. But what I was doing was making peace with the past. And civilians do that too. They do that in massively expensive therapy sessions. Mm-hmm. But so when I started to see that, it took a lot of the fear out of the fourth step for me, fourth and fifth steps. I thought, no one else did this stuff. This is your stuff. And that kind of gave me that confidence to take ownership on that.
It is natural for us to have a fear of going into that because it is such an unprecedented task for so many of us. I had never done anything quite like that.
No, 100%. It's not something that us, probably our civilians, take into our normal daily routine. Or shall I reflect on my past and where I've made mistakes? And I think the fear for me probably, and for a lot of people, comes from the telling someone else part. My own kind of procrastination kind of worked in my favor for once. I finished step 3 with my sponsor, and we'd got down on our knees and we did the stuff. And he said, right, now you're on to step 4. We've covered it in home group recently. We did a book study and we go through it all. And so I knew the recipe, and I'd read the book and I knew what I was meant to be doing. So I got a bit of paper and I wrote 4th step at the top of it. And then I did absolutely nothing, as is the want of an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I called him about a week later, and he said, how's that 4th step going? I said, well, it's underway. Now, I wasn't lying, because I had written 4th step on the piece of paper. It was underway. And he said, oh, that's good to hear. Can you finish it off, and we'll have a chat about it before the meeting tomorrow? The gift of desperation. It meant I stuck to the point. I didn't get bogged down in life story. It meant I isolated the incidents and the occurrences that I needed to make peace with and I needed to deal with. The next day, we sat outside under a little shelter in the pouring rain and did my 5th step with Matt. And we went through it, and I told him all the things. He told me, we made sure that I was aware of the character defects and how it was all operating. And he said, there's my copy of the big book. Off you go, do step 6 and 7. But what about the meeting, Matt? No, go and do step 6 and 7. Ooh. I remember crossing the road in the rain with a book, getting back in the car and feeling 6 foot tall. Well, I'm 6'2", but feeling
7 feet tall.
7 feet tall, 8 feet tall. There was a weight lifted,
Yeah.
There was a weight lifted somehow. And my main care in the world at that point was not to damage Matt's big book. It was obviously a thing of great antiquity. It had notes and pages missing, and the cover was all gone. And I eventually said to him when I gave him it back the next week, God, I was so worried about you're losing your big book. And he said, well, why? I would have got another one. Yeah, there's the alcoholism at work then.
Oh man, I love it.
I love that story. Did you have trouble identifying the character defects? I couldn't identify what my part was always. But in doing the 5th step, that's where I learned what it was, because my sponsor knew right away what my part was.
I was kind of lucky because my home group, the deal is a very, very rigid big book, straight down the middle kind of recovery group. When we go through the big book and the book study, when we get to steps 4 and 5, we write it up on the board and we actually go through the process as a group with the 2 presenters, and we work through some genuine examples.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
No, it was great. So I'd been through that 2 or 3 times before I got to actually having to do it myself. I got that distinction between being dishonest, as in telling lies to another person, and being dishonest to myself in keeping a resentment going. And those sorts of little distinctions, my part was not over here in life. My part was over here in my head, where I was going, that person thinks this, that person thinks that, I'm going to catch up with him and I'm going to stab him in the eye, and then the next time, I'm going to cut his head and so that's I kind of got that because it had been spelled out for me by those in front of me. And my sponsor was just right for me. He got me, I didn't get him. He ran interference on my way out of the meeting and said, I'll be your sponsor. Here's my number. Call me tomorrow.
Best sponsorship that I have experienced are sponsors that I didn't pick. They picked me or they were recommended.
Does the 4th step and 5th step have to be complete the first time you reach it? If you've done enough to make a start, if you're willing to sit down with your sponsor with what you've got, you can always say, now you got the hang of it, do you want another week? And we'll meet again this time next week and we'll finish this off. And I've done that with one sponsee because he had one thing on his list that was a biggie. It was something really big and horrible, and it took us a long time to disentangle that one. I ended up suggesting that he went and got professional outside assistance.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned seeking some outside help, because AA is not the fix for everything.
Oh, 100%. Couldn't agree more. The one that I hear a lot is AA members offering advice, well-intentioned advice about medications. Anybody, the only person I want to hear advice about medications from is my doctor.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
When it comes to medical stuff, that doctor, he or she is a higher power compared to me.
Yes.
Years of training versus alcoholism. Thank you. I know where I'm going for my advice. But similarly, you hear it about all sorts of things. I always just try and say to people, look, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is a great way of addressing your problem of alcoholism. You get that squared away, you've cleared the decks, and you've got a fighting chance of addressing any other problems and issues that you may have. If you need to seek outside help, go do that. I've done it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've had counseling, I've had that, and it was very helpful. It was nothing to do with alcoholism per se. Plays a part, of course, because it's who I am, but that's why these people are out there.
My experience of counseling and therapy while I was drinking versus what I did after I got sober, absolutely night and day.
Yeah, me too. I went to a therapist. I knew that I had this ball of anxiety inside. And if I could figure out what that was, then I wouldn't have to drink out of control. And I learned all about that ball of anxiety and what it was, but it never touched the drinking. I went to AA. I was able to stop drinking. That worked. And I continued with the therapist after that. And now I'm 7 feet tall.
A spiritual gas giant.
Yes.
I mean, how many of us have sat in therapy and answered the question, do you drink? Oh, yes, I do enjoy a drink. How much do you drink? Oh, probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 beers over the week. What I actually meant was, 8 or 10 beers on top of a bottle of vodka a day.
Yeah. Geoff, what is your recovery like today? What do you do to stay sober today?
Don't pick up a drink of alcohol under any circumstances. I mean, that sounds flippant. There's an awful lot behind the scenes that makes that possible. I still attend regular, frequent meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Do a mixture of in person and online.
In your face. That might be why people have a problem with you as a sponsor.
Yeah, that's the sponsorship style, eh?
In face.
I got sober and I did it in your face. No, regular meetings, a mixture of meetings. I do spiritual concept meeting, do the service meeting, I do the secular AA meetings. And of course, I'm heavily involved with service committee meetings, and I had one yesterday for the National Convention Organising Committee. There's various board committees and working groups that I'm involved with. So we always complain, and I know from service nerds that it's the same, and probably globally, that we don't attract enough new folks into service positions and wanting to work in service. And I think we go about it the wrong way. I think we hold workshop and lectures and discussions when, you guys have been sober a good while. Do you want to go and hear somebody stand there and prattle on for an hour on concept 3? No, you don't.
No.
I might, but then I'm a service.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? I think we sell it the wrong way. I think we should be saying, through doing service, through being a DCM and a delegate, it gave me this in my civilian life. It showed me how to operate. It helped me get better at my job. It helped me get better at being a dad. It helped me, be a better person and get away from the nuts and bolts about committee meetings and, motions and all that kind of stuff. Service makes you a better person is the message I think we should be selling. And we do a very, very poor job of that. I maybe don't go to as many general meetings as I used to, but I'm certainly talking to as many alcoholics. We're maybe not sharing program, but we're living in the results and sharing the results of the program.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yes.
Which for me strengthens my sobriety too. Because, when you're you could be having a discussion about, changing paragraph 3, subsection 4 of some pamphlet. And then somebody will just chime in with, well, yeah, I was discussing it with my sponsor and he or she said, blah, blah, blah. And you just go, oh, I'm having that.
Love it. Yeah.
that is mine. That's going down in the notebook. And then you start thinking about it, and you use it and you pass it on, and that's just how this program works. And that's how I stay sober these days. Lots of contact with a variety of alcoholics for different reasons. different stages of sobriety, different backgrounds. I probably have got slack on not talking to my sponsor as often as I should, but he's certainly the first on speed dial should something come up.
Yeah.
As he said himself, he's on my side even when I'm wrong.
Love it. Love it. So what I'm hearing, Geoff, is that AA is incorporated into your life. My recovery became a part of my life when it was practicing these principles in all of my affairs. I got a lot more content with life.
Yeah, up until I was about maybe 2.5 years sober, I was doing a lot of AA meetings. I was doing a lot of stuff in AA, and I was kind of coming home from AA, and then I was doing home, and then I was going out to work, and I was doing work. And eventually my sponsor said, "Are you hiding out in AA?" Back half of step 12, as you said there, practice these principles in all our affairs. But you have to actually go out and get some affairs. And by that, I don't mean that type of affair.
Oh boy,
doing the stuff that civilians do.
That's
roll your hands up, roll your sleeves up, and get stuck into work. Help people there, go above and beyond there. Do that. Get on the committee of your clubs that you're involved in and do it. And that's where it all started to get clearer and make a lot more sense, and just felt that contentment. I didn't get the billionaire status and the fast cars and the massive mansions that you kind of think about when you're on your 14th beer of the morning. I got what I needed, and I got where I should be because of my own efforts. I was self-supporting through my own contributions. It just makes life, I'll not say easy. Bad stuff happens. Just because you're sober doesn't mean you're living some rose-colored life of ease and comfort. But it lets me have a faith that I have the ability to overcome. And the way I'll do that is by reaching out to other people and getting that help, getting that advice that I never used to do. There's always somebody around the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous who has been through whatever problem you're currently facing.
Whatever it is.
And if it ain't your sponsor, he or she will help you find someone who has. And I've never had a bad steer yet through allowing my problems to be helped by fellow alcoholics in recovery. You always end up coming out the other side thinking, "Oh, that was horrible, but it's over now." And then my thought immediately turns to, well, I know I can help the next person in the barrel when it's their turn.
It's not that everything goes great after you get sober, but one thing is I don't make things worse. And the other thing is there's someone who's been there before and says, this is the way I got through it, and I can get through. I'm confident I can get through anything. So
absolutely.
Now
it's not necessarily that life gets better, but we get better at living life.
That's it. And we're better off hearing from you, Geoff, today. I really appreciate you being
Absolutely.
here.
Thank you for joining us, Geoff.
No, it's been great. Really enjoyed it.
So you need the help of a lawyer again. I've gotten you off twice. This is your third DWI. Do you think you might have a problem?
I sure do. I need to stop driving.
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. Podcast info, including how to call in, is at aagrapevine.org/podcast. Find AA Grapevine on Instagram and the AA Grapevine channel on YouTube. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org. If you want to know more about AA, Google Alcoholics Anonymous and your city or visit aa.org.